You're listening to the Game of Inches podcast, powered by Mayflower Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Jacob Smith and Andrew McGinnis.
Welcome in, guys. We are back. This is the Game of Inches podcast. I'm Andrew McGinnis. I have Jacob Smith with me and Nick Borrman, our guest today. First time on the show. Really happy to have Nick with me. And Nick, well, I know you as a handicapper. We work together at Wager Talk. Of course, you specialize in several different sports, golf being one of them. But you aren't just someone that bets on golf. You also are someone that's played it at high levels. You are a pro. Tell me a little bit about your golf background. I don't want to mess it up, so I want to just get it from you. Tell me about your golf background.
Yeah, golf is a game I didn't actually pick up really as a true, 2-year-old junior like a Tiger, for example. But when I was in middle school, both my parents were members at a club and would play, and I'd join them a couple rounds in the summer. Then, in high school, I got a job at a golf course, and I could play for free, and I just started playing nonstop. And I'm like, I was a delinquent kid, like most of us, and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do in school. And I'm like, golf's pretty cool. Maybe I go to golf school. So I did. And basically, it was just a business school with, golf management. And then we play tournament golf every week. It was it's not Division I, it's Division 3, and then you're playing. So I played collegiate golf, which is not on the best level. I mean, the levels that are above me as far as playing goes is pretty significant. I was never ever going to be, what we're watching this week, for example.
Right.
Because people ask me that question all the time. I'm like, I was never that good. I could go out and shoot par and be around there when I was playing all the time. And I have plenty of times I've shot under par. But now, and I have kids. I don't play nearly as much. I run a golf business, so I play once a week. If I'm lucky, and I'm happy with a mid 70s type of a score. Bad days, I might get up in the higher 70s, but that's it. I'm a PGA professional, so been through all the training on that. Know how to teach. Been teaching the game for 20 years, playing the game for a little bit longer, and that's my story. But yeah, I love the sport. I love obviously watching it. This is literally my Super Bowl. All last week, I'm joking with my wife. I'm like, listen. Mowing the grass, I'm cleaning the house, I'm rubbing your feet. Don't talk to me next week. Don't ask me for anything, because this is my week. This is what I want to do. I'm sitting around and watching golf all week. So
awesome.
That's my story.
Before we jump into the Masters here, me and Andrew are both fairly new golfers. Honestly, pretty jealous that you're able to shoot in the 70s, or a bad day is a high 70s. But just for some new golfers out there, we have a lot of friends that are kind of new golfers. What's some advice that you could give for us new golfers to kind of try and hone our game in and really start to maybe excel a little bit more than we think that we could?
Well, it depends what you kind of what you want at first. So, I mean, the most important thing, I guess, or what everybody wants to do, especially when you're first learning, is you want to hit the driver well, and you want to be able to get to the green. So everybody's going to go to the driver range. And you're going to practice at the driver range hitting drivers. You're probably going to spend half of your time hitting your driver, because chicks dig the long ball. And then you're going to hit some irons, and then you're probably going to walk away. You probably forgot about putting. You probably forgot about chipping, and maybe you work it in every other couple practice sessions a little bit, but it's boring. Let's be honest, right? So, but the game of golf is getting the ball in the hole, and being able to control everything from 100 yards in is where the scoring happens. So I'll admit, you got to start with the full swing, because you at least got to get the ball airborne and kind of get it out there in front of you. But I've taught so many people from all different levels for years, and the one thing that you got to focus in on to take it, from a guy that's new to then all of a sudden you're all right. I'm starting to hit it, get the ball, get the scores in the 90s, but I can't really get into that 80s, right? And then that's 100 yards in it. So everybody's going to miss shots, everybody's going to miss fairways, everybody's going to miss greens. But if you can get up and down, if you can minimize, that's what we always joke around when we hit also block balls in the woods all day long. Got to minimize, punch it out, get back in the fairway, get on the green, 2-putt, bogey, walk away, avoid doubles. But that all comes with short game. So you got to be able to get up and down. You got to be able to scramble. And it's not as sexy of a practice session, but it is way more important. And when I was in school, the number one thing, I'm the same. I'm like, I'm going to the driving range. I'm hitting drivers. I'm bombing balls. And the instructor, one of my first ones was like, how many times you hit driver around? I'm like, well, every tee shot. He's like, well, you got the par threes. You have a couple shorter holes you might not, right? So 12. How many times you putt around? I'm like, well, Well, I guess he 2-putt every hole is 36. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
Makes sense.
And I try to tell people invest in your clubs the same way too. I mean, everybody goes out and spends $600 on a brand new driver, and I got this $100 putter that's got, you can put lefty and righty because it's from the mini golf place down the street. Maybe we should put a little time and effort into getting fit for a putter too, because it does help. But short game is the answer to that question, Jacob, and it's not as fun. It's some. When I was in college, I used to. My buddies and I would hang out at somebody's house, at the end of the night, and it'd be a long hallway with a carpeted long hallway, and we would just set up, just play some stupid ass game, like you get points for getting as close to a closed door as you could down the hallway, and just do it for hours, hours on end. And it wasn't that I was outside actually hitting it there, but that got me good at being able to control the ball around the green. That's where you got to go.
It sounds to me, and I'm not a big guy, so I shouldn't even be talking about the gym, but it sounds to me like chipping and putting are the leg day of golf. It really does. I mean, it's the leg day of golf. I mean, everyone wants to hit driver, everyone wants to work out the chest and biceps and stuff, but nobody wants to go and work on the putting game or the chipping game. But I think it's cool because a lot of people, they specialize betting wise in sports they don't play, but obviously for you, golf is your life, and you're also a professional bettor with it too. And you mentioned this is your Super Bowl. This is, your Christmas morning. And I love chatting with all kinds of different people about different sports because it kind of gives you the appreciation for it. People for opening day yesterday in baseball, or our pal Andy Lang with Formula One, just all kinds of different sports. You can really appreciate it. Even though you might not love it that much, everybody kind of has that sport that they love the most. And of course, the Masters is a huge tournament that we all get up for. And even the casuals like myself want to watch and have it on the TV for 4 straight days. So I just wanted to ask you, obviously you're a Tiger fan. We're going to jump into the Masters completely, but I've seen it on social media. I've seen you talking about him. I'm cheering him on. I think a lot of us are here. Just tell us about kind of how you became a Tiger fan and just what your thoughts were on him heading into this tournament.
Everybody aged maybe 45, but definitely 40 and under that plays golf and watches golf does it because of Tiger Woods. And I'm right there. I mean, that's the end. That's the story again. I was a kid. You're growing up in the 97 Masters. I'm 13 years old, and I'm like, that's that time frame I just started playing. And I'm like, this is the coolest kid in the world, because he was just a kid at the time, and everybody wants to be like him. He was Michael Jordan of golf, and you wanted to be as cool as him. You wanted to be just like him. And if that didn't get you excited, obviously everybody knows it changed the sport. It changed everything about golf, from equipment to money to the caliber of players, and it got everybody to want to be like him. And I'm the same. So that's when I really got into the game. That's when I started playing a lot. That's when I just fell in love with it. And I don't know. I like greatness. I like seeing, somebody that can do something that no other person can do, and they just continue to do it. Everybody's got everybody hates Tom Brady, right? But
yeah,
the guy keeps winning, and it's amazing. And why would you? I get you're going to cheer against him if he's like playing against your team, but otherwise you're just like, oh, screw Tom Brady. I don't want to cheer. Okay, fine, but you got to admit it's pretty fun to watch, and you're just watching the best in the world do what they do. And he was so far ahead of everybody else as to how he just approached the game and how he changed it, and it was just crazy to watch. And I was inspired like anybody else. I got the itch. I saw it. I'm like, I'm going to be like that guy. So it's amazing.
Kind of a specific question here to Tiger and the Masters. I was reading a lot of people were expecting maybe him to get the medical exemption to not really have to walk the course and use the golf cart. Do you think that's kind of a pride thing that Tiger decided, you know what, like if I'm doing this, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to play like everybody else, and I'm not going to kind of do the John Daly type deal where you constantly get these medical exemptions to use the cart? Because I think walking the course is a big part of the fatigue factor that goes into the game. Do you think that's more of Tiger kind of saying, I want to do it my way, or him kind of like a pride thing where it's like, I want to be like everybody else and kind of give everybody a fair shake?
Good question. I mean, the answer is 100%. He wouldn't be playing if he couldn't walk. He's very, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't want to show, maybe weakness is the right way to say it. Like, think about the time that anytime he's ever had issues, right? You go back to the fair years ago, you go back to his other back surgeries, you go to this, he comes out, he says what's going on, and that's it. You don't hear from him. He doesn't want to show his life or anything about it that the public doesn't know as being great. He doesn't show any weakness. He doesn't have that side of him that's going to want to show that. So he's not going to want a crutch, air quote there, a crutch to lean on with a golf cart. He's not going to play in that type of a situation. And it's not that he's against anybody that needs to. He loves the game. There was a guy, Casey Martin, that had a disability years ago that he was a big proponent of and wanted him to play golf, wanted him to use the golf cart. But that's just, for him, that's something it wouldn't even be a thought, which I wonder. I always wonder this question too: is when he gets to 50, he's going to play on the PGA Tour as long as he physically can, but he obviously can start playing on the Champions Tour. But there's a pride sense in there that I don't even know if he's going to compete there. I think he hangs it up after the PGA Tour and doesn't even get into that level, and it's just another way to he only wants to be known as the guy that did it at the best level for as long as he possibly could, better than everybody else, and doesn't want to have any sign of oh yeah, but he had that one time where he had the golf cart, or yeah, but he got this, and he doesn't want any of that. And so I think it was just something it was never an option for him.
You mentioned Tiger being the MJ of golf and just such an unbelievable athlete, and obviously being a sports bettor, I look at the odds and I'm always chasing the underdog, or I see who's favored to win tournaments and things. But I wanted to ask you, just in general here, every single sport has those names that even someone that doesn't even like sports would recognize. You ask anybody on the street right now, who's LeBron James? Someone that hates sports probably knows, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting. My girlfriend's parents were over at my house yesterday, and they could have both only name a handful of golfers, a couple each, right? So what I wanted to ask you, as someone that watches it every day, as a huge golf guy, who are kind of the big name guys? And I'm not really talking skill, just big name that people would know. And then who are kind of the guys that get slept on because they aren't flashy or big in the media? Who are kind of those guys that everybody knows, and who are kind of the guys that everybody should know more about?
Well, I guess is your question more or less from anybody that doesn't know anything about golf, like you said, like my, your grandmother that never played golf or watched golf. Well, I mean, there's honestly probably only two names that most people have heard of. Phil's the other one. He's been around long, because they were kind of rivals, and they were Tiger. Before Tiger, golf wasn't cool. Golf was stupid. It was an old man's game. It was an out of shape man's game. It wasn't a cool thing to do. So he made it cool. And at that time, when all of a sudden the popularity blew up, who was he playing against is kind of where people remember. And Phil was obviously the biggest rival at the time, and still is playing. And of course, won the PGA Championship last year. So that's the two that I've never met a person that doesn't know who Tiger Woods is. Mm-hmm. I've met plenty of people that don't know who Phil Mickelson is, but more often than not, they know who he is. When you get to at those two names, because usually it's the question is, hey, name me some golfers. It stops there. It honestly does. If you get any sort of person that's more into sports in general, then you're going to start to get into your current players that are up there, and then that's your top guys. Ricky Fowler. He's not playing well the last couple of years, but he was the name. He was the next cool kid, right? He dressed all flashy. All the kids wanted to be like him. I know so many young kids that when, at the golf course would come out wearing the bright orange and have the cool outfits on. I'm like, Ricky, so he was a very popular player that people got behind. Jordan Spieth became that because he was an American player. He was young. He was fun. But Ricky was probably bigger as far as an impact goes, and more people were, at least the younger generation was more in tune with him. Then you get to, I guess, now, and you got guys that's just who are the names, who's the best in the world is who people are going to know. Dustin Johnson's been around long enough now where his name's probably been brought up before, and he's married to Paulina Gretzky. So if you didn't know him from golf, you knew him because he's got a hot wife, right? So that's got that side of it too. I actually heard it on a radio station on my way to work today. They're like, "Oh, wait, wait, he's married to that," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's how people know." Sometimes, but that it's more who's known for other things or in the pop culture world than they are strictly just a golfer. Obviously, golfers are going to know your John Rahms, your Justin Thomases, and all those guys, but they're not that popular outside of the golf bubble.
Okay.
So it's the guys.
Sunjae Im, a guy with a translator yesterday after he, number one after round one, and obviously someone that can't even communicate with the fans. That's a little bit tough, but he's such a skilled golfer. I think more people should know about him.
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as wagering on golf goes, heck yeah, he's a guy you want to know about. He's one of the best iron players around the world. But yeah, he's just a perfect example of somebody that's not mainstream media in any sort of fashion, especially in the United States where you're speaking English. You're not going to know who that guy is.
I'm just going to say I took Sunjae Im in my Masters pool. I definitely had to get him in there.
Well,
who are some of your favorite golfers right now? Like you said, obviously Tiger's one, and then you mentioned some guys there that are very good golfers, but a little bit less known. Like I'm a huge Jon Rahm fan. I think John, when he has his game going, he's one of the best in the world. Victor Hovland's another guy that I really like. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler right now is doing his thing. Who are some of your favorite golfers we'll call them the new age golfers?
Favorite, well, I'll give it might be two different types of favorites. So favorite as far as just I like to watch them and I want to see them do well. I love Scotty Scheffler now that how he's just took him so long to finally get that win. There was those three guys, Morikawa, Hovland, and Scheffler, that all came at that same rookie class. And Scheffler was I guess you want to call it the late bloomer, the guy that took longest to win, but he was right there along the whole way. And now the fact that he's won so much and he's so calm and he's so professional, and so they joke about him on Twitter that he's 24 or 25 years old, I forget, but he acts like he's 45, right? So he's a fun guy to get behind. So I like him. I was never a big Rory guy, and it's not like I don't like him. He was the next challenger to Tiger Woods, right? So I didn't want to see Tiger get dethroned, so I never got behind him. And most people were kind of like that with Phil, like. You like Phil, but you never really wanted him to beat or dethrone Tiger, so you never really were cheering for him. So Rory was kind of that guy for me. Dustin Johnson, I've always liked because when I was in school in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, he was there as well. And the course I was working at the time, he was right across the street, coastal Carolina, from where he was going to school. And he'd come over to the golf course and hit range. And we had these houses on the golf course, on the driving range, around the left and the right, but along the back of the driving range, right? So most regular daily golfers, you go out there and hit driver all you want. You would know Dustin was there within 5 minutes of him being there because all of a sudden the phones are lighting up from the neighbors going, somebody's hitting my house with golf balls. And you're like, that's got to be DJ. Probably only hitting like a 3-iron or a hybrid over the driving range. So I've had a lot of personal interactions with him. So I've always been a fan of his, and he was kind of from the same area. And then, more, I would say, I guess you could call it brand new or really new in the last few years. I think it's Scheffler, and I do like Hovland a lot. He's got a lot of spunk to him. Morikawa was good and everything, but for some reason I just am drawn to Hovland a little bit more.
Yeah, Morikawa is a very good golfer, but I find he's a little bit dry. Yeah. So I definitely understand that.
Of course, we're recording this on Friday. We got round 2 going on right now, but I just want to get your thoughts kind of, I guess, on who you liked coming in to the Masters, and then your thoughts after round 1. Who disappointed you, who put on a show for you, and what are your thoughts kind of moving forward?
Yeah, so I'm sitting in a great position right now. Obviously, we've got a long way to go, but I had 5 outrights. 4 of them are in the top 10 after round 1, and still right now I had Scheffler, I had Cam Smith, Daniel Berger, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and then the one that was outside of that group was Brooks, who started off well at -2 and then ended up being a +3. I'm not even sure where he's at right this second. So I'm sitting in a good position now. And, when you're looking at the favorites, it's tough. I mean, any given week, somebody could have an off week, but you expect most of those guys to play well. So to narrow down who it's going to be is it's tough, but you got to look a little bit at course history and stuff like that. So those are the guys that I chose. I'm happy with where we are now. Fitzpatrick to me is like one of the under the radar guys. He's number 1 in tour and strokes gained tee to green, yet, because he's not winning and he's not a big flashy player and nobody's talking about him, but he's always right there. He's got good history at the Masters, and he's out, he never really gets into a lot of trouble, and never, he's always in the top 10, top 15. And I'm like, you know what? I just want guys that I think will be there on Sunday. Mm-hmm. He might not win, but if I have a chance, I'm within 2 or 3 shots on Sunday, it just makes golf betting that much more fun. That's all you can really ask for on these outrights. And then, hopefully every few weeks, or sometimes it's a few months, you get lucky and you get that outright winner. But Cam, as far as the favorites go, Cam Smith and Scheffler were the 2 I was high on. And luckily I didn't jump on the JT bandwagon, for example. He had a terrible day 1. He was very disappointing for those that backed him. Tiger I took just as a make the cut because I figured if his leg was truly an issue, that perhaps he could sustain his stamina and his energy for 2 days before running on a steam over the weekend. So I thought that was the best way to kind of attack him this week. But those were the guys that I circled in on. And so far, so good. But we got a long way to go. I'm sure tomorrow you'll ask me. I'm like, yeah, they all suck. They're all
And JT's odds were like one of the lowest, weren't they? I mean, that's a thing about him. I mean, you at the Masters, it's known for, obviously you could see, high prices and some long shots, but of course the big guys show up. But I mean, you also want to try and find some good numbers. So JT obviously disappointing day one, and he was like one of the lowest odds, right?
Yeah, him and Rahm are always going to be, their tops on the market. And the reason I avoided them is because they're not winning. They're not playing poorly. JT's been playing actually very, very good. He's got several top fives and top tens over the last few months, but he's not winning. Then you got a guy like Scheffler, now number one in the world, right? He's priced at 17-1. I was able to get him. Rahm and JT are at 12-1. Rory, Morikawa, Spieth even, who's been doing crap. Yeah, he's got Masters history. But they were all priced at Scheffler's odds or worse. And I'm like, okay, 17-1 is not a huge payday on an outright by any means, but of the 6, 7, 8 real favorites of this tournament, he's the number one player in the world. He's won 3 out of the last 5 starts. Why is his number not reflecting that? So I'm taking that kind of action all the time, and I'm going to avoid the guy like Rahm or JT that are priced at the very top, who, again, I'm not expecting him to miss the cut, but they aren't winning. So why am I going to lay that kind of a number and hope that, I cash it when he just hasn't been proving it? So that's kind of my strategy with those guys. I will say, for anybody looking to live bet at this point,
bring it on. That's what we want.
There's a great stat. I mean, now you're in the middle of the second round at this time, but the Masters since 2005, all right, the winner has come from the top 10 after day one. So that means you had a very short list of players to look at. The only 2 exceptions for that was Tiger Woods twice.
Wow.
But he was in the top 10 technically because he shot 100. He was tied for 10th. So he kind of fit the first category anyway. But since 2005, everybody except for Tiger twice has been in the top 10. So you can't go – people don't come back from a big deficit at the Masters. It's too hard. Nobody goes low here, right? It's very rare to go low. So if you have one bad round, it's tough to climb back in because if somebody has one decent day. 400 was – actually, Im shot 500 yesterday. That was the low score. Im probably not going to end the day at 500. The low score today, the final score today is probably going to be less than that because it's supposed to be very difficult with wind. The greens are brutal when it gets fast out there. So we're probably going to see scores come backwards. And at that point, you can't shoot 5 strokes. You can't shoot 500 par to catch up. And you're fighting for pars as much as anybody else. So anyway, top 10 is where you want to look at this point. Otherwise, I think you're going to see some fun numbers that are like, oh yeah, 100-1 at this point. You're probably just wasting your money.
That kind of leads into my next question here. As a course pro and a handicapper, how much do the courses play into who you're betting on? Because I've realized, not all the time, but I'm a huge proponent of at the Masters. I love to bet the Asian golfers. The Asian golfers, I feel like they have really good course management. They're usually pretty solid, and those are the guys I kind of look at for betting wise, maybe to make the cut, top 10, top 20. But how much do the courses play into, maybe not even for the Masters, but just from a tournament to basis on who you're betting on?
Well, the Masters is probably the number one course on tour that course history matters. Freddie Couples was a guy that, he's now over 50, but before he was at 50 and he was in his late 40s and really wasn't winning anymore, he was a first round leaderboard bet every single tournament. He didn't have the stamina, he had back issues, so he couldn't get through the tournament, but he knows that course better than anybody. And he's always going to play there. And Masters, you'll see the same names year in and year out because they know how to play the golf course. They know where to miss. That's very important at the Masters at Augusta. And maybe the course fits their eye. And now I'm kind of broadening out to different types of courses, right? So forget Augusta in general. Some courses suit a player's eye better than others. One course might have more holes that dogleg left, and that right-handed golfer is natural tendency is to draw the ball, and it just fits his eye, and you go away from that. The course I used to like playing at the best in Myrtle Beach, every hole was a dogleg right, and I hit this little cut around the corner every time. I would just go play it. I would love it, and then all of a sudden I get on a course where everything was turning left, and I'm like, I'm trying to manipulate my shot, and I couldn't do it, and it's in my head. And right now, where I work, where I play the most, I'm 5 shots better here every time I play than if I go on the road and play somewhere that I don't play regularly or I don't know as well. It's natural. You get comfortable at a place, you know what the place is, you know the club you're going to pull before you even get on the hole. You know exactly where you're going, you know exactly where you're missing, you know exactly what how to navigate that particular hole, that particular green. So course history and management on that particular course is very important. Sometimes you got to pay attention to when just looking, if you're too quick with it, and you're looking at like past tournament history. Sometimes they're changing courses. Sometimes the weather had such an impact on the event that maybe there's an anomaly in there. Like, oh, the players, for example, you might look and you're like, oh, those guys, a lot of big names missed the cut. And if you forget about that and you look next year, like, yeah, but he missed the cut there last year. He stinks. You got to remember, and you got to have an asterisk next to that particular year that everybody struggled on the wrong side of the draw at the Players' Championship. So you got to kind of throw those things in there too. But his course history and knowledge is very important.
This will be my first year, Nick, getting a membership somewhere. So I can't wait. I moved to a new place and I have a place that's like 10 minutes away. So like, I can't wait for what you're talking about. Hopefully at least, you know, that can mean something to me, and Jake can come up to my town and I'll be a little better here than anywhere else. But I'm looking forward to that. Jake mentioned the Asian golfers, and, you know, NBA, NHL, like every single sport, the real importance right now is global initiatives, you know, trying to grow the game everywhere. Obviously, it's a little bit different with golf, but because it's already so like globalized. But one thing I find interesting is that, you know, and of course, I know I'm at a fault on this podcast for probably talking about betting stuff too much, just because it's kind of like my life. But you see all these bets that are available for, you know, top Australian, top American, and I just want to ask you, you know, from a betting standpoint as well, but just in general, you know, how have you seen it grow worldwide? Because, you know, from a casual golf fan that watches the big events, and honestly, I used to just watch mainly on Sundays. Masters is probably the only tournament I'm watching on Thursdays, you know, during the day and stuff. Yeah. But what can you say about just how like diverse it is and globalized the sport really is? It's not just, you know, Americans taking over; it's all around the world.
There's hotspots. You know, there's areas that money. You know, golf's not a cheap activity. It's like skiing. You know, it requires equipment. It requires you know, courses to be built, and then, you know, it costs a lot of money to go then play them. So it's very regional as far as the areas that picked up on it and have a lot of play there. South Korea was one of the biggest booming areas for golf. I would say going back to about 10 years ago, it started. Maybe a little longer. And that's why you're seeing a lot of players from South Korea like him that are, you know, at the top of their game, are very, very good, that have come out of there. I sat through a seminar with Sean Foley, if you know that name. He was Tiger's coach after Hank Haney. And he talked about that fact. He's like, listen, if he's like, right now, the money for me as a coach of, like, you know, tour level type players, I'm going to South Korea. They are so invested in getting the talent and putting in the time and having that next wave of players come up. They're willing to pay way more than anywhere else to get that in that situation. So that became a very hot spot area over the last 10 years. South Africa is an area that's got a ton of talent, a lot of good golf courses. So it's, you know, it starts with money. It always starts with money. So it's like the chicken and egg. You got golfers that all of a sudden are getting interested in the game. They might not have a lot of places to play. Then all of a sudden there's these great golf courses being built. But South Africa is a place that has it. Europe's always been big. Obviously, you always had the history of, you know, Scotland, Ireland, you know, golf kind of starting in that area. And then you have the Ryder Cup, Europe versus America. So those two, Europe's always been there. But South Korea and South Africa are the two biggest hotspots. It's now becoming Middle East, right? You're talking about the Saudi tour, and you're seeing a lot of events in that Saudi Arabia area. So that there's a lot of freaking money in that area. So that's the next area. I don't know a lot of players yet that are in there. I have to imagine that's coming in the next few years, but the golf courses are getting built like you wouldn't believe right now. The money being spent on that infrastructure is through the roof. So I would have to imagine that we're probably going to see a wave of players coming from the Middle East over the next 5-10 years.
Cool.
Yeah, you mentioned South Africa. Schwartzel's actually -3 right now, so he's bumped up to tied for third. So just goes to show that if you put the dedication in and you get that regionality where you're the country's almost kind of buying into the sport, that you can definitely kind of make waves. But for me personally, just kind of to switch here a little bit, I'm not a huge live better, and I know a lot of people live bet golf what are some of the things that I can really look for? Because I don't usually like to bet the early rounds. If I'm either going to bet pre-tournament on who I think is going to win or top 10, top 20, but for the live bets, what are some of the things that I could look for maybe like after the cut? So once the cut happens, what are some of the things that I could look for outside, maybe like you talked about, like the top 10 for the Masters, but more so just in general for the live bets?
So it's guys that you kind of liked pre-tournament. It's no different than live betting, I think, any other sports. Guys you liked pre-tournament, or a team you liked pre-tip off, and the first quarter didn't go well, and they're trailing by a few, and now you got a guy that's sitting, or maybe he made the cut line on the number, but it's a guy that you were projected to be pretty high on, and he's been playing very well, and maybe he just had one bad day, right? Or and he's like, oh, you know what? It just Thursday happened. He hit that one bad break. He cost him a double on that hole, and whatever it was. Now you jump on the chance to get him to get a leaderboard bet, like a top 5, a top 10, and the odds are obviously going to be much better than they were pre-tournament. So you get the chance to get in there at the number you would have probably been happy to take before the tournament started, at 5 times better than it was originally. And then matchups. Matchups are always good. They always have daily matchups available, round 3, round 4 matchups. And for that, what I do, and this, requires, if you're going to actually get into golf, usually a paid type of subscription. But for example, the place I go to is datagolf.com. I forget the exact price, $150 a year or something like that. They have strokes gain data in real time. So what's important about that is your score doesn't always dictate how you're playing. I mean, if you play golf at all, you'll know sometimes you go out there, you hit the ball like shit, but somehow you shot a couple over. You're like, I don't know what just happened. And then some days you hit the ball better than you've hit it in 3 months, but you just couldn't make a putt. And you're 6 shots higher than you were the day before, then you didn't hit it at all. So golf can be weird like that. So strokes gain numbers, which Data Golf will provide during the round and after every single round, will be like, John Rahm, he shot 2 over, but he led the field tee to green strokes gain, meaning he was hitting his shots in the fairway and then on the green closer in proximity than anybody else, but he lost 3 strokes putting. That doesn't happen very often. If the guy's hitting the ball, that's the consistent factor. If the guy's hitting the ball well, that stays. Usually the putting is the one that's kind of like it can change day to day to day. There's a lot of luck involved in making 15, 20 footers a lot. So that's kind of where I gauge it to. I try to find that like guy that's like, whoa, that's an outlier. That's an outlier, right? He's like, he shot a bad number, but his data suggests he played a lot better. And what's nice about golf, you have an entire night to look through that and figure it out versus live betting, an NBA game where you got, a couple minutes and all of a sudden that line's gone. You're like, oh crap, but not even a couple minutes. It was a couple seconds, right? And that line's gone. So you have time to kind of sit and dive into that and really look at matchups. But you're at the mercy of, you can't just pick, I want to pick this guy versus this guy. It's whatever book you particularly use that puts up maybe a half a dozen all the way up to 20 matchups to choose from.
Before we wrap up, I want to get your overall thoughts on the rest of the weekend and just any closing thoughts you do have. But I feel like as much as we've talked about him, I kind of want to give you the chance to just touch on how special it is to really see Tiger out there, after the tragic accident that happened, and just you talk about him being the MJ of golf and such an unbelievable athlete. How great is it really to see Tiger Woods out there just playing what he loves to do?
It's amazing. I sat by the TV every shot, just like drooling over every shot yesterday, wanting to watch him. And honestly, like yesterday, he hit the ball very well, but he had a lot of probably 5 holes where he had like 6, 7, maybe a little longer foot putts for par. And I'm stressed, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't watch. I don't want to see him miss this. I don't want, because all I want is for him to be in contention through to the end, right? So I'm very excited about it. I'm very stressed about it because I feel like I'm invested in him. Even if I'm not, from a money standpoint, my life is invested in this guy. I want him to succeed. I want him to win. I mean, Twitter will tell you how many people on Twitter or any other social media thing, that's all they're talking about right now is, if not the Masters, they're definitely talking about Tiger and the fact that he's there. And people that don't talk golf at all are all of a sudden talking about Tiger. All I've seen is the little goat emoji or whatever all over Twitter. And I'm like, oh, you don't even have to say the guy's name, but it's awesome. It's great to see. It brings the casual fan back into the game. It gets the excitement back in there. We just had some pretty crappy weather where I'm at here, right outside of Philly, the last few days, rainy, and today's finally a nice day. But I'm like, listen, if Tiger's in contention through this weekend, I guarantee you, maybe not Sunday, because Sunday people are going to want to watch if he's in contention, but next week, we're gonna do a shit ton more rounds than we have the last 3 weeks because people are like, yeah, like, this is awesome. I can't believe it. Just because you're watching. When you golf's one of those sports where you watch. Like if you're not a golfer and you're watching golf, it is god awfully boring, right? Everybody can say that, and that's a joke everybody always makes. But if you are a golfer and you start watching golf, I can't make it more than 2 holes before I'm like grabbing a club in there and I'm like, oh, I want to go out and I want to swing and I want to get over here and I want to do that. So it's him. When just mentioning his name, just watching him out there makes people want to get out and play. So just for the game itself, it's great for you guys, right, that are just getting into golf more so to be like, yes, this is awesome. And then you get the itch and you're like, I'm going to go play now on Tuesday because I just watched the Masters all week and it was freaking awesome. And I can't wait to get out and try. And then you slap the first 3 in the woods. And you're like, all right, well, maybe we'll get some beers now and just have some fun. At least it got you out there.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I was the Masters started up yesterday and I was thinking in my head, I was like, I'm going to use 4 hours of vacation on Saturday. I'm going to go play 9 holes real quick or 18 if I can fit it in and then I'll go back to work. But decided against it. I was like, you know what, probably save that for the summertime when it's a little bit nicer. But just one final – sorry, go ahead.
I said, but you thought about it.
I literally today was the day that I decided that I wasn't going to do it. All of yesterday, I was like, I'm doing it. And then I was like, you know what? Probably save it. But I just wanted to ask you one final question. Danny Willett, obviously really, really low ranking golfer in terms of the world rank. I think he's ranked like 160 something. Last year, Will Zalatoris, another guy, wasn't really a household name, really put his mark on the Masters. What is up with these guys that kind of just come out of nowhere for the biggest tournament of the year and kind of almost showcase themselves of why they are on the tour and why they have the ability to win such a difficult tournament like this?
Well, Danny Willett, real quick, is a past champion. So the one thing about the Masters you want to look at right away is past champions. You look at that leaderboard right now. You already mentioned one name, Charles Schwartzel, past champion. Danny Willett, past champion. Bubba Watson, he's right there, past champion. So guys that have won here, I said this is one of those places with the course history. This is where you can look at that. And a guy that hasn't been playing well at all, Jordan Spieth, he'll come up and show up for this tournament, even if he's not playing well for the last year coming in because he knows it so well and loves it so much. But in general, like Will Zalatoris last year, for me, I was already betting him before the Masters because if you're in the golf world, he was one of the best collegiate golfers that was around, him and Scheffler. And it was like, you saw him coming. They were talking about him already. I don't think I didn't bet on him particularly in the Masters because generally first timers don't have a great record at Augusta. It's a course you have to learn. So that was very surprising to see him finish second, but at least his name wasn't a total surprise to most people in the deeper golf world. But the level of talent from some of these guys week in and week out that they can just, catch that right fire any given week. And a lot of it has to do with the flat stick. I mean, if you don't, your tee to green game isn't going to change that much week to week. But I've had so many days myself. I'm talking about a day over 4 rounds is tougher, but where the putter gets hot and I'm making everything. And, you go through 3 rounds. Sometimes you don't make a 20-footer and all of a sudden in one day you make 4 of them and you're like, what the hell? And you saved 5 shots in that particular round. Those guys can get hot for an entire week. And it's just because maybe the grass that they're playing on is something, a Bermuda or a tipped dwarf or a bent grass suits their eye a little bit better. And they're used to it. And then of course the course knowledge there. So I would say that there are surprises that come through, and that's why you see long shot guys that win, over 100 to 1. But when you're kind of in the golf world, you're never really truly surprised. You're like, there's a couple. Sepp Straka was the one that won. And I forget now even which tournament it was a few weeks ago. That was like, okay, nobody in the world of the golf world was betting on that guy. So there are those anomalies, and they're hard to pick out. But I mean, he's a professional golfer. He does this for a living. He's pretty damn good. Any given week, he got hot, and he won. I mean, it happens. It's hard to pinpoint, though.
I just have one more question for you, and this is kind of probably a random question, a little bit selfish. So I was fighting with the boys the other day. The guys told me, they were like, oh, yeah, golf's not a real sport, blah, blah, blah. It's not that difficult, like in terms of like the fatigue on your body. Can you just talk about what it's like to play 4 rounds in 4 days? Because I told the boys, I was like, listen, if you guys can go out there 4 days in a row, I don't even care if you use a cart. You can walk, cart, don't care. If you can go out there for 4 days in a row and play 4 rounds, I will pay for your rounds. If you can, I want my money back. Can you just talk a little bit about the actual fatigue on the body and like the actual mental strain that you kind of go through playing golf? Because a lot of people don't realize how much mental goes into the game. Like if you're down on yourself throughout a round, like your play is going to kind of dictate that.
I mean, you just hit the nail on the head right there. So physically, you know, a young guy, 20, 22, 23 years old, can go and play 3 or 4 tournaments in a row and be okay. But what happens on a tour level, right, is that week in and week out, the whole you got 4 days of golf, assuming you're making the cut. Then you're going to have to travel, right? And then you got you got to get ready for the next tournament if you're trying to play that next week. So you got 3 days to get ready, and one of those is a travel day. And then you're sleeping in hotels. Your whole schedule is out of whack. So on a tour level, it's very difficult just because of the fact that you're moving, you're traveling. The mental aspect of it from all the way down to, you know, our level is still there. I mean, you go out and you play, you try to, as soon as you start playing poorly, how quickly do we quit on the round? And at this point, I don't even care, whatever. You're out there. You're going to finish the round because you're having fun and you're with your buddies and who knows. But on a tour type of a level, to grind out when you're not playing well, I mean, Tiger, he played well yesterday, but he was grinding that round out. And I think we'll see a lot of that this afternoon where you're not getting the ball exactly where you want to in the course and you're stressing over 6 and 7 foot par putts. Age is a huge thing. I joke about it now. When I was 24, I go out and play 36 and 54 holes in a day, not even break a sweat and be like, oh, this is great. I might not play well the whole time, but I'm like, I'm out there. I can physically do it. Now, if I play golf 2 days in a row, I legitimately am tired and my body is like hurting. The next day I'm like, no, I just want to take the day off. My back is like a little tight. I felt it in my hip. And it's actually, if you look at the science behind the golf swing, the motion on the back is one of the worst of any sport. Besides maybe basketball, where you're literally jumping on your knees nonstop. I played basketball my whole life. I have terrible knees, so I get that. But golf on your back, the torque, you're basically taught to take your hips and turn your shoulders as far as you possibly can against that, right? To create as much torque as you possibly can. And then you rubber band and snap it back. That's where speed comes from. Okay? That's not good. That's your body was never really meant to do that. And you do that all the time on a tour type of level where they're going as fast and as hard as possibly you can. It's tough. Are we going to be getting all that type of stress in our bodies? No, but we're probably not as good a shape either.
Yeah.
Those guys are in good shape. So that old adage of your John Daly's is no longer a thing. You look at the guys on tour anymore. There might be a couple guys, but most of them are in pretty good shape and work out a lot.
Yeah, I've been told multiple times that golf is probably the most unnatural kind of like body movement of any sport that you could have. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming on, Nick. We really appreciate it. The Masters is obviously a huge event, great insight, especially for somebody like me who's kind of new to golf to hear kind of things like this. And also in the betting field where I'm not constantly betting golf, but to give me some tips here. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate you coming on. This is another episode of Game of Inches. Do you just want to shout out maybe where people can find you on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Of course, I'm with Andrew over at wagertalk.com. Do a lot of golf, obviously, and soccer is my other forte. I'm on Twitter at Borman, my last name, Borrman 00. So you can find me there. And I enjoyed coming on with you guys. I appreciate the invite for sure. Anytime you want to talk golf, listen, the problem with me is I could just sit there and talk golf for somebody that doesn't want to hear it for like 3 hours. And I can see their eyes glass over. I'm like, I'm sorry. So anytime you want to talk golf, I can bore the hell out of you.
We really appreciate it, Nick. This was another episode of Game of Inches. We'll be back next week. I think we're talking to somebody from the Montreal Canadiens about Justin Barron. So appreciate your time, Nick. Thank you again. And we'll be talking soon.